Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for our October 12th study session of the Sumner County School Board. If you would like to join all of us in standing for a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance to our country's flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Hessens. Tonight, our study session, our first presenter is Ms. Hessens. I'm trying to be very careful at this stepping in chairman role. I have a tendency to want to call you Jean. So tonight, instead of first names, because you all are my friends, Ms. Hessen is going to be doing a presentation on a technology update in Sumner County. And so we are excited to hear from you, Ms. Hessens.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you all tonight to provide a bit of an update on our instructional technology for Sumner County Schools. My name is Jean Hessen, just over here, Jean Hessen. I serve as the Sumner Connect coordinator and have worked as a teacher in Sumner County Schools for 15 years. Sumner County Schools has made incredible strides in instructional technology over the past few years. To provide a bit of background, when Dr. Phillips began leading and serving in Sumner County Schools, we allocated, in 2011, we allocated a total of $20,000 in annual funding for instructional technology. By 2016, Sumner County had established its annual district device funding to provide each school with additional funding to purchase instructional technology for their building. Every year, schools had DDF, district device funds, to purchase what was needed within their buildings. So from 2016 to 2020, we invested over $11 million in instructional technology. We had a plan, we had a vision, we were working towards providing more access and more availability to instructional technology for our students and for our teachers. Then we experienced a global pandemic. Nothing drives innovation like crisis, right? Innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity and not a threat. Sumner County Schools, our leaders and our teachers want what's best for our students. And they work hard every day to meet the needs of those students. But meeting those needs during a global pandemic requires change and innovation. Teams worked tirelessly to gauge the needs of our students and build responsive and innovative plans to meet those needs. Beginning March of 2020, teachers, leaders, parents, and students were surveyed regularly to gather feedback and make informed decisions regarding that feedback. Surveys included POSIP and Google Forms. Again, teams of teachers and leaders took that feedback and digested it, made plans, tweaked plans to best meet the needs of our students. From that feedback of parents and teachers, we worked to identify those needs, and we decided as a team, it was glaringly obvious trends across the entire district was communication was not a problem. We communicated from all types of platforms. Streamlining that communication was much more of a concern. We realized this in March of 2020 in the throes of COVID. We decided to support a baseline of Google Classroom and Remind to best meet the needs of our students. We also realized we had to provide access to online instructional tools and materials for our teachers, and we just needed more devices. We needed more computers. While we had made huge gains since 2011, notably from 2016 on, we knew that we needed more because of the pandemic. By June of 2020, we had formulated plans to better meet those needs. That included the position of a Sumner Connect coordinator to train and support teachers in instructional technology. We all knew it was important, but COVID was the swift kick that many teachers needed to things that were once optional were now essential. We had to have training. We had to have additional professional learning around these tools because now that was our way of communicating with our kids. And our Sumner Connect leads and the Sumner Connect coordinator worked together to devise plans with technology to best meet those needs. We also started by restructuring the Sumner Connect site. Before, it was where teachers went to get their lesson plans. Then it became a training hub for teachers. How do I use Google Classroom? How do I use these sheets or these forms? Parents, how do I even log into my kids' Google Classroom? How do I access Skyward? How do I use Remind? Sumner Connect became the launching point for that training and for those communication pieces for parents. Sumner Connect leads were established. We knew we needed product. We knew we needed more devices. We knew we needed more computers. But we also needed additional training, and that required additional people and building that knowledge. So we started with the Sumner Connect leads. 58 Sumner Connect leads, which were classroom teachers well-versed in all things technologies, were poured into building their own capacity, building their training and their comfort with technology, and then could go back to their schools and help their teachers. So they knew more, they were poured into, and then they had to train the trainer to go back and support the teachers in their implementation of instructional technology in their classrooms. And then we knew, how can we support teachers as they have 10 kids in front of them and 10 kids who are home on quarantine? Actually, in March of 2020, we weren't really sure what quarantine even was, but we had the vision to understand that these videos were going to play a huge part in our instruction, whatever it looked like, substitutes or just to increase our own capacity in understanding the curriculum. So we knew we needed to launch the lesson library. The lesson library is composed, like we've talked about before, of K-12 lessons in ELA and math that teachers can download, students can access, and then load to their Google Classroom for teachers or for students to watch while teachers aren't teaching virtually and teaching the students who are in front of them. Going forward, it will continue to be utilized in things like substitutes or if a teacher's out for various reasons, they can continue that learning without being saddled with the lesson plans through the lesson library. So we knew that lesson library would be important. But then we knew we had made great strides in 2016, but we realized in order to make online learning most effective for our teachers and students, we just needed more devices. So our mission for the 2021 school year was to get additional devices in the hands of classrooms and in the hands of our students and our teachers. Teams led by Sumner Connect leads surveyed teachers and leaders to gauge the needs and to plan and build plans and to launch those plans. We didn't want to just haphazardly purchase. We knew this school needed 75 Chromebooks to be 1-4. We knew this school needed 36. This school needed 94. This school didn't need any. This school is already 1-1. Through surveys and feedback, we were able to accurately gauge the needs of our schools to spend our money wisely and effectively to best meet the needs of our students and our teachers. That was our mission for 2021. Devices, product. We had to increase, while making huge strides since 2016. Pandemic really threw fire on all of that. So, since January of 2020, just look at those numbers. It's insane. Just since 2020. The district has purchased and deployed over 1,700 Chromebooks to bring all of our schools at a 1-4 ratio for Chromebooks. 1 Chromebook for every 4. That is the baseline. There are schools that are 1 Chromebook for every 2 kids, and there are schools that are 1-1. Every school is 1-4. Plans are currently rolling out to purchase nearly 2,000 additional iPads for K-2 classrooms. 5 iPads for every K-2 classroom to meet those little hands. That touch device is really nice for a 5-year-old as opposed to navigating a Chromebook. So we have plans going forward to purchase around 2,000 additional iPads at the district level to be deployed in all K-2 classrooms. Teacher devices. Based on feedback, again, we knew we needed more laptops. Teachers had computers, but through COVID, we realized the importance of mobility. Okay, we knew we needed to shift our approach and be responsive to the needs of teachers in providing laptops. We gathered feedback. We knew we needed this many at Beach High School, this many in Westmoreland, and this many at Jack Anderson through our Sumner Connect leads. Again, Sumner Connect had these teachers that were trained more, a bit more into them for instructional technology, poured into them, and then were able to kind of share that information out to their buildings. We used them to gauge the needs in their buildings. We knew exactly how many laptops we needed. We purchased 1,500 laptops. And beginning next week, 1,300 of those laptops will be deployed to schools. That is like makes the hair on my arms stand up. I'm so wildly excited. I can only picture, like, these are the things that teacher dreams are made of. You roll up the box truck and there are all of these computers ready to go right to your schools. I would like to give a huge shout out to our technology department, because when you think about the number of these devices, it's nuts. But you think about unpacking a new computer, plastic, styrofoam, all of those pieces that make a process that should be rather quick, extremely labor intensive and take a very long time. Through their research and the work that they've done, they've added things like a white glove service. These computers come to us with our inventory tag, loaded with our inventory, mirrored hard drives, with our own one-pager that we've drafted as a district to reflect what our teachers need to do with these new computers, ready to go. Every new hire and teachers who voice not having a laptop will have laptops. That is our end goal, and we are right there, guys. We're so close. So kudos to you guys, because these computers are coming in. They came in last week, and they're going out next week. It's insane. That's so exciting, and it's responsive to the needs of our teachers. So we're really excited about that project. So the twofold project of laptops and Chromebooks were funded by the district through federal funding. That is not through the school's district device funds, okay? So that lift was removed from schools, so now schools have that district device funding to get ahead. Those schools that didn't have thriving PTOs or additional funding allocated to them for various purposes had that lift of keeping up to date with their laptops removed for a while so that they could do things like buy additional STEM equipment. They could buy the new projectors they need for their classrooms. They could buy the document cameras. They could be more innovative in the spending of their district device funds, because we as a district made plans and laid plans to take that lift for a while so they could plan more innovatively. That's really exciting as a teacher, right? So that's where I am. And we also worked to acquire all of these new devices, guys, during a pandemic, while everyone else was trying to do the same thing. Everyone else was trying to do the same thing. We had people in our district who led with such vision to say, this is coming. Get them now. Buy them now. And it was right. Well done. Way to serve our teachers. I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of our teams that worked to do that. And while everyone else was dealing with supply chain interruptions and overall shortages, we were able to secure close to 3,000 devices for our teachers and students. So kudos to tech. So looking at our timeline to address the needs of COVID, we said in March of 2020, we knew we needed to streamline communication, provide support, and more devices for our teachers. And by June of 2020, we had made plans to include things like a Sumner Connect coordinator, to include restructuring our site, and to pour into our people. But if you look at this, kind of categorizing it, March 2020, June 2020, product, okay? Shifting our gears in response to COVID and to appropriately support our purchases, by July of 2022, we were shifting our focus, or increasing our focus on our people. Okay, these in March and in June, how does Google Classroom work? How does Remind work? How do I get this to turn on? How do I get it to project? How does this stuff that was once optional now become essential, and how do I use it? Over the summer of June and July of 2021, and currently, we are working to increase the capacity of our teachers. Everyone's a technology teacher now. Everyone. How can we properly support our teachers in the effective implementation of instructional technology? We're not getting Chromebooks for Chromebooks' sake. We're one-to-one. What does that even mean? How can we effectively implement our devices to increase student achievement and ultimately student success? That's where we are. So through that, we look at things like instructional technology coaches. Sumner Connect leads worked well, but we needed to reframe the purpose, and we poured it into instructional technology coaches. How can these individuals look at their teachers and the people within their building and build the capacity in them? So we're working with our ELA curriculum or our math curriculum. How can instructional technology help to make that more impactful? How can you increase student voice in math class? How can you increase the timeliness of your feedback in an ELA classroom? Technology can help you do all of that. So let's find someone in the building who can help build that capacity in their faculty, and that's where our IT coaches came in for Sumner Connect. And also ongoing professional learning to reflect the needs of our teachers. Again, rooted in feedback. These are not one offers that were like, hey, this was cool, we saw this, let's do this. This is what our teachers have voiced that they need. Based after the launch in 2020 with Sumner Connect, we had these videos online where you could watch how these things worked, how Google Classroom works, how Sheets worked. Based on feedback, teachers said, hey, we need more in-person training. We need PDFs that we can print off and I can mark all over, and I also need to be able to reference these videos. So we shifted gears and changed how we trained our teachers for this school year. We now offer PDFs. We now offer printable materials and implementation videos and even in-person training once a month for different technology focuses. So we're responsive to teachers' needs. This is not just one new initiative we're chasing. We are working to support our teachers and in the effective implementation of that instructional technology. So look what we've purchased for the 21-22 school year. 1,700 Chromebooks have been delivered. 80 Chromebook carts are coming, and 1,800 iPads for K-2 classrooms are also on their way for this school year. For teachers, 1,300 laptops have arrived to include classroom teachers and those in pupil services. EL teachers and special education teachers are included in these devices. Expansion of internet access, we have 700 T-Mobile hotspots. We've increased our LTE expansion opportunities and doubled the building level bandwidth. Also, teacher training and leadership supports. 60 swivels and iPad for coaching and training. We talked about this. We talked about how can teachers, good coaches use film. You're not running your routes correctly. You're doing this well. You're really great at this. Let's show all of your other teammates how you do this well. Good coaches use film to support their team. Good teachers can use film for the exact same thing. Reflecting on your own instructional moves, I say way too often. I need to work on that. But filming yourself and watching yourself decreases your level of vulnerability and causes you to be reflective on your own instructional practices. Swivel provides that opportunity for our teachers. It also helps our instructional coaches, our lead educators, to say, I can't be in every classroom every day, but there's me personally, and then there's Swivel. And the elementary students love it. It turns with the teachers as they move around the room. There's a marker on the teacher, and the kids wave at it like it's a Jumbotron. Like, no, we're not here, meet the robot. Now, let's get started. So we're really excited to see the impact over the next few years that Swivel has on our classroom instruction. And that's a really cool purchase. We actually have networked with Swivel through Twitter. So we're excited to see how that networking pays off for our district as well. So since 2016, Sumner County Schools has invested a total of $16.8 to include federal ESSER spending and funding in instructional technology and its devices. Check this out. Sumner County Schools have over 14,000, close to 15,000 student Chromebooks, 11,806 laptops and desktops, 8,776 iPads, 1,600 document cameras, and 2,575 projectors or new line displays. A total of 39,558 instructional technology tools and devices to increase student achievement, student engagement, and ultimately student success. That's incredible. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. We have the devices. We have plans to continue our devices, to continue purchasing our devices.
Ms. Heston,
Yes, sir.
Just a question real quick. Looking at the number of devices, I know there's a lot of technology and teaching going on in the classrooms.
Yes, sir.
Do all of our schools still have a computer lab? I know over the years we've gone from typing to computer labs, and it seems like in some place we've shifted away from a true computer lab. It's now more, I guess, STEM related in those areas, and more of the computer teaching is going on in the classrooms. Is that accurate?
Yes, I think you still have some hardwired computer labs because back when we started the DDF fund, and they can expand on this, but some principals moved more rapidly to mobile devices and some didn't. We let them have input and choose. Now most have all moved, as you can see by the graphics, moved to mobile. But we still have some spaces that are hardwired computer labs across the district, but they're much less in number than they have been in the past.
Thank you.
From a teacher lens, it's really great to have a mobile lab in a Chromebook cart in your room or accessible to you. Moving 20 or 25 kindergartners to a lab to log in is often a challenge. And so from a teacher's lens, it's just kind of shifted to that mobile capability, which is just nice. But there are still some of it.
Yeah, I assume that was happening. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Brown?
Are the teachers up to date on all of this?
Meaning, are the teachers aware of the devices available to them, or are they?
I know they probably know they're there. Do they know how to use them?
That's actually a fantastic segue to the next slide.
Oh,
That's exactly where we're heading, because we have had, in order to use the devices appropriately, you have to have the devices. So first was product. We have to build our product. In response to COVID, since 2011, we've built our fleet, right? So now we are emphasizing the importance of our people and teachers' knowledge. So to have a mobile Chromebook cart in your classroom is fantastic. What a blessing. But you have to know how to integrate that into your instruction for it to be impactful. We don't want to purchase anything to check a box. We want it to improve our instruction and improve the outcome for our students. And that requires building capacity with our teachers. And we're going to continue and increase our focus on building teacher knowledge. So, with that, our process for the future, now that we have 39,000 plus devices in our classrooms and in our buildings, how can we capitalize and utilize those devices as most effectively as possible? And that comes from pouring into our people. We're going to do that by training. First, we'll have our instructional technology coaches will continue to create learning opportunities for our teachers based on feedback. So teachers, what do you need? What can I help you with? Have you seen different training opportunities for our teachers based on their feedback? The training will be ongoing throughout the school year. You do not want the training to be something that they do in June and they don't see it again until if they see it again. It needs to be ongoing. You become a better soccer player not by practicing in June alone. You become a better soccer player by practicing all throughout the year. And we want to afford those opportunities for our teachers to have ongoing professional learning driven by their needs within their building. And our instructional technology coaches do just that. Coaching as well. So not just how does it work, but how can you be better within that instructional technology? So they'll work to support teachers in the implementation of that technology in their classrooms. We'll continue to gather feedback. What's going well? What's not? How can we help? How can we support? We'll gather feedback continually through surveys and through different surveys to include Google Form and POSSUP, and through conversations as what our teachers need and build plans accordingly. And then ultimately that feedback will guide our purchases. What's needed? How can we build plans and wrap our funding around this to best meet the needs of our teachers and our students? So looking back over our timeline to address COVID needs, March of 2020, we knew we needed to change our communication to effectively streamline our communication. We knew by 2021 we had to wrap training around what we were setting as our baseline. How could we use Sumner Connect leads to support that, to help our teachers? By 2021, July of 2021, we knew we had the devices were coming. How can we train our teachers to implement this effectively? And then finally, our future vision is to seamlessly integrate technology into every classroom, where every teacher is naturally a technology teacher. It's not one more thing. That's just how they function, because technology, they have the capacity and the knowledge to use technology to increase student achievement, to increase student engagement, and to ultimately increase student success. So the last thing I want to share with you all is someone who does this well. Right? We have bright spots all throughout our district, and I'm humbled every Tuesday and Thursday when I get to don the doors of classrooms and watch great teaching. And I've been in Miss Nicole Vaughn's classroom at Knox Doss Middle School, and she does this really well. So I wanted to give her a few minutes to explain how she integrates instructional technology into her 6th grade classroom. Yes, sir.
Before you go away.
Yes, sir.
Your team has exceeded probably expectations. You've gone about 1,000 miles in a 100-mile zone. Part of it forced by the pandemic, I understand, but I commend you and your team for what you've done. I'm gonna give you another challenge.
Yes, sir.
There are different elements of our school community. You've really done a wonderful job with students. Very major portion of our school community is students. I understand that. You've done an awesome job. Another major portion of our school community is teachers. You've done an awesome job. But what can we do as a school system to better train parents so that they can help their 3rd grade child who comes home and doesn't remember what they had for lunch, much less how to get on the computer and do a little bit of work or whatever? It seems to, and I've heard from parents just being so frustrated because they can't get whatever it is they need to get. And no, I can't help them. They know I can't help them. But anyway, but they still call me. But I'd like to see us do something that teaches our parents, and I know some of that's on the parent, I know some are not going to do it, but those who will, how can we help our students, help our teachers by helping our parents? And that's my comment. Thank you.
So, I'll tell you, no ums. Yes, so I'll tell you the approaches we've taken thus far, and we do have opportunity in this area as well. Sumner Connect did provide and communicate additional training videos for support at home. So how do you log into your child's Google Classroom? Those tutorials were included on Sumner Connect, and we did attempt to communicate that out to parents in the throes of all things COVID. Some schools did have parent night for parents in instructional technology, where they could see, this is your Google Classroom login, this is Remind, this is Skyward. So we're just trying to wrap some training and communication. That's a great feedback and great question. We are trying to wrap some training for our parents in support of that. Definitely not a blind spot. We're working hard on that as well. Yes, sir. Thank you. That's great.
I think, Mr. Wise, another thing, Jean's also overseen this, is our use of Remind. Some of the feedback that we got in 2020 at the end of that school year is parents really appreciated what we did, but because we didn't have one uniform platform to communicate, they were getting PDFs from teachers, Class Dojo, Remind. There were like 14 different platforms we were using, and that's when we went to Remind. And I think in the spring of 2020, we sent something like 8 million back and forth communications between parents and teachers. We hit a staggering number of communication, like using Remind as one of our main points of contact. And I think you're right. It's one of those things where we can always do better, and we need to strive to do better, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you've got. If parents can't access it, it limits our effectiveness. So I think you're right. It's something where we can absolutely do better. But I think like part of the answer is streamlining to have a couple of tools that we use really well, because then it's a lot easier for us to communicate. Because it's a lot easier for you if you get the phone call to say, hey, if you'll go to the Sumner Connect website, start there and see if you have any questions. but then we can kind of build on that. I know, like Ms. Andrews she communicated to me when school started for us to put together something for parents new to Sumner County so that they know how to access everything at the start of school, so that, because they don't know that we have Remind, they don't know about our websites and things like that. So we're going to absolutely, Jean led, or Ms. Hessen led at the start of the year this year. Like in June, we had for all of our principals all the back to school documents that they needed in one place. I used to spend hours as a high school principal trying to find the documents for our registration nights. Like, that's taken care of and it's done. You know, I think we ended up with that by May 31st, so they had it all summer. So we're getting better at it, but it's definitely something that we need to continue. So I appreciate the feedback, because we can definitely continue to work on that.
Thank you. I will say, like, I love Remind. The only challenge with Remind is I've got 4 kids. I've got a senior, I've got a 6th grader, and I got a 3rd grader and a 4th grader. And every one of them has multiple teachers, plus administrators. And like, I've had to turn notifications off because it was killing me, the number of messages that I was getting.
You were
And
over-reminded.
I appreciate the communication, but I mean, it can be overwhelming at times too, trying to keep up with everything. So I try to make a point to go to it at the end of the day to see if I miss anything. Not always good at that, but that is the only challenge. But you know, that's life with multiple kids too, and sports kids and everything else. So it's constant communication going on. So I think I miss more than I get, but I try. So that's the only downside to Remind that I see.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. We could perhaps chat after the meeting, and I can give you some helpful hints on your account settings to help you with how that's as well. Yeah, same. So I can help you navigate that where those are delivered. It's definitely an interesting. So I'm gonna go ahead and yes, ma'am.
This is more curiosity than anything else. I noticed, like, we're given K through 2 iPads.
Yes, ma'am.
How do they come? Are they a fold-up type, or?
It is like your iPhone times 4.
Yeah, but it's open
Yes, ma'am.
glass.
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't have anything.
It doesn't come with a case, but we're able to select a case that's best for our students. Definitely a case. Are you asking in regards to durability? Yes, ma'am. Definitely a factor with K2 kids. You just find the appropriate case. They have all kinds of cases that protect that purchase. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to switch gears to Miss Nicole Vaughn, 6th grade teacher at KDDC, who integrates instructional technology very well into her classroom. So turn it over to her and let her share the successes she's experienced in her classroom.
Hey, I know a lot of you in this room. I've taught several of your kids in this room. I'm Nicole Vaughn. I work at KDC under Mitch Flood and Michelle Rogers, who are amazing administrators and supporters, and they are big reasons as to why I have been working so closely with some of this technology in my classroom and how I integrate it. So I can be very winded. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet and to the point, and where you can find things that are most meaningful. So first off, constant meaningful feedback. So what do I use? I utilize 2 things, and we do kind of like Mr. Langford just said, when you streamline it, I'm a give me everything kind of person, like let's open tabs. But I found with kids and technology, 2 things is great, and that's where we stop. So I use a Google Classroom, and I pair it with Pear Deck. And I have actually been working closely with Pear Deck through Twitter, and am going to start working at some point this year as a training to be a coach for them, and hopefully eventually a coach for some county people who would also like to utilize this in their classroom. So a lot of times ELA is dumped on as to not being able to use technology, and if you can integrate technology seamlessly into ELA, you can do it in any classroom, right? And it goes on every day from the moment we walk in with daily check-in, as soon as they walk into my class till the bell rings and they put their Chromebooks up. We get it going, and it works beautifully with our Wit and Wisdom curriculum. I would go on to say that Wit and Wisdom is made for this. It is made to be integrated into technology, right? So we do constant meaningful feedback, whereas the kids would used to write an essay, turn it in. It would take me a week and a half to grade all 75, give them feedback. They're not looking at anything that I wrote on the paper. They want to see their grade. Ooh, I did good. Binder done. So I spent 5 hours of my time working on writing that. They're like, oh, Miss Vaughn has giving me a smiley face. Great. And done. That's not, no more. What do we do now? We type in a thesis statement on Pear Deck. You know what I do? We show all the answers except for Pear Deck has this amazing thing where the students' names are not attached to it. So you know what we can do? We can go through feedback and I can give constructive criticism. Hey, this isn't included there. You don't have a transition. This comma is not in the right place. You know what they're doing? Correcting immediately. Do you want to, like, I'm passionate about it. Like, I can't get, you don't know why? Because my students are making growth in the first 2 months of school that they make in an entire year because they get immediate feedback. Y'all, one-to-one is so important. It is so important. It's not because technology looks pretty. It's not because, ooh, let's post on Twitter that we all have Chromebooks. It's because these kids can change their thinking in the moment and not a week and a half when I hand it back to them. So they're changing it now, so they're changing it tomorrow. That is power. That is competitiveness with the rest of our state and throughout the U.S. and other countries. That's what people are doing already. So I'm so passionate about when I see the light bulbs go off in these babies' brains about, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And then tomorrow we do another thesis statement. I'm like, just move the comma, kids. You did it. This is right. Like, I'm sitting here going, oh, well, I guess I'm not needed for this today. Let's move on to the next thing. I'm going to out-teach myself, and I'm not going to have a job by, May. Right? That should be the goal, though. The goal should be like, well, dang, we already went through all the standards. What are we going to do next? Right? So let's power through that. It's so powerful. Immediate, meaningful feedback where they can self-correct right then. And you know what's so amazing is I didn't even have to tell my kids to do this. By the time I'm on the 4th or 5th correction and we're flying through it, guess who's already correcting all of their own mistakes? So when I get to them, they can be like, wow, Ms. Vaughn, did you see mine? Ms. Vaughn said it was great. After that, I can see them typing and fixing, right? They're already doing it. It's beautiful. It is how teaching is meant to be. It is such a win. And if I can do it with ELA and my kids can do it in their team, in our community that we've built in my classroom, in our classroom, they can do it in any subject at any grade level. It is so powerful. The next thing that we do really well in our classroom is we create team working zones. What do I mean by that? They get on Google Classroom and I can make a classroom doc for individual teams. So we call them teams, right? I'm not my class, but it is our team. We are working together to support each other and they grow that way. So in our small teams in our room, I'll create them a Google Doc where there's 4 of them and it's a living document. So they can all be working on it at the same time. You can't create more beautiful collaboration than, hey, can I see what's on your paper over there? No, it's on your screen, and now we're just talking about it. You can see it. Hey, Jeremy, I think we should do this here. Cool, we'll move it to this box. They don't have to shuffle papers around and spread out through the floor. It's right there for them. The same way you guys work at work. Let's afford that to our kids. Let's let them take that power in their hands and work that way in the classroom. Right? It's powerful, it's meaningful, total collaboration all the time. And then assessing in-moment data. This is my favorite thing about Pear Deck. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, data. ELA has data too. It can be data driven. We can meet kids where they are. You know what I can do with Pear Deck? I can put up a multiple choice question, and again, no names have to be attached to it, so no kids have to be called out individually. They can see it on their screen, but everybody else can't see it on the big one. It's beautiful. So we can see, hey, by the way, guys, I just asked this theme question, but 50% of us didn't get it right. So what does that tell me as a teacher? I need a new teacher move here because something didn't happen. So quickly in this moment, let's re-talk about theme and how to get that. Not through an exit ticket that I got to go through in 8th period and go, oh, well, dang it, I got to teach theme tomorrow. Let's do it right now. While we're thinking about it, let's make the change. So tomorrow when I ask you a multiple choice theme question, guess what? At least 80% of us are getting it right because we talked about it in the moment yesterday. It's powerful. So when I say fully integrated into the classroom, if you can do it with boring ELA, with our standards that cycle into one another, any subject can do it, and it will be just as powerful if it's used correctly and it's integrated naturally. It is an organic process that we can all do with the right training and the right equipment, I promise. Do I need to hit the button? Yeah, that's what you did. Okay, so all of that, this is the most important part to me as a teacher. Social emotional learning. I see that elementary schools do this so well, right? Like we're all checking in on feelings and all that stuff, and then they get to middle school and we throw everybody to the dogs, right? Like but not in our room, in our community, in our classroom. Every day they do a daily check-in. So when they walk in, it's a Google form and they know to fill it out every day. My students know that I read these because I talk to them. There's always something at the bottom. There's like a funky question. There's something at the bottom that says, tell me something you need me to know about you. And sometimes they'll say nothing, having a great day, or I hope you're having a great day. And sometimes they'll say, I'm not looking forward to going to my dad's house this weekend. I wasn't having a good day. If I'm still at school when I check this during my planning period, I go find that kid before they leave to go home. I get to check in on them emotionally. I get to connect to them. If I ask them to write that on a sheet of paper, I can't get to that all the time. But you know what I can do? While I'm eating my lunch, I can scroll through my phone on this Google form and read what they're doing. Or while, I am doing something else on the side, I can still scroll. Or if I'm in the checkout line at the grocery store, because nobody's checking anybody out and I gotta wait at self-checkout, I'll just keep scrolling, right? And it's there. Or, like last week, some of you guys got this from my message, my students, they come in acting like they haven't slept for 50 years and they're all asleep. And on these check-ins, they kept telling me I didn't get enough sleep last night. Like I had, out of 70 kids, I probably had 40 tell me they were tired. So what did I do? I used Remind. And I sent out a text, hey parents, I just want to let you know I check in on your kids on a daily basis, and a lot of these kids are telling me they're tired. I just want to remind you that, sleep's important. I know life's hard, but, check in on those kiddos, make sure they're going to bed. We want them to be the best they can be. And of course, that was a mistake because so many parents started pinging in, did my kid tell you that? Are they going to sleep? I told him to put up the iPad, I did it to myself, but now they get to have a conversation at home because they filled out this Google form that said they're tired. Y'all, it's so meaningful. It's impactful. This kid right here, I don't know if you can see this tweet, but I had a student, I'll leave you with this. I had a student who was not sold on my classroom. Struggles in ELA, not connected to it, came in, put his head down for the first week and a half, does not enjoy my classroom, right? So of course that's my target now. And so as we start integrating this technology and he's typing his stuff in the check-ins, I'm talking to this kid every day, asking him, hey, you didn't fill out your checkout form. You gave yourself a 2 that you weren't doing great, but you didn't tell me why. Is there something going on? This kid can't wait to get into our classroom. He can't wait to get with his small team. He can't wait to tell me why he's so happy. On this message, he wrote to me and it says, tell me something about your score. He said, keep doing your teaching. And there is nothing better you can do to make this great class better. I give me and you a 1 million and 1 million. I'm just telling, in all of the dim stuff that can go on around you, this kid hated my class. And now, apparently, there's nothing I can do to make it any better. It matters. He would have never told me that. So, I'm here as an advocate. I'm here as a think partner. I am here as someone, if you need me to walk through anything, my door is open at Knox Doss. The sheriff may come and close it, but you can come and knock on it. I would love for you to come and watch not only these students do this every single day, but just to see the meaning behind what is happening in our classroom, in our small community, and in our small teams. I think you would really enjoy it, and then I think you're going to all come and see how we can make this county 1-to-1 as fast as possible. So, thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Right?
May I make one first?
No, you can be next. She's full of BDP.
DDP.
Oh.
Love it.
Yes, Mr. Gregory.
Did you go to White House?
I did. K through 12.
Change his comment
Well, I had some comments to make. You're excellent. You're very good. Now, one question.
Yes, sir.
Could you make that presentation while putting your hands in your pocket?
No, I talk with my hands.
Teacher
All
move.
here.
Teacher move for sure.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you a ton. That was fantastic. And to just, to close with, all that Ms. Vaughn has shared, if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow's. Multiple times she said, this is how we work. This is how you all work. This is how the workforce is. Collaboration, teamwork, relationships, communication, all of those skills through technology and through the seamless integration of instructional technology in our buildings. I'm proud of the direction of our district. I'm proud of the vision that our teams have for the direction of our district, and I'm excited for the strides we've made in our instructional technology. Thank you.
Miss Hayes.
Ms. Hessen, Ms. Andrews.
Yeah. I just want to give props to Miss Vaughn. She has had the pleasure of teaching all of my children. We love Miss Vaughn, and she reached out to me and told me that she was going to be coming tonight and so forth, and was telling me about Pear Deck and so forth. And I asked her, is this something that you just used with your advanced placement students, the honors ELA classes and so forth? Because I know that she does an excellent job. But she said, no, actually, she said that she has some regular ed students as well, and they are just as engaged. And I think that that speaks volumes as well, of that this is not for a select group of students. This is for all students and can meet the needs. You hear a lot about scaffolding and stuff like that, and I feel like that this helps with that, to recognize like it's more than to just a CFA or a test or whatever to see where they're at. Like, you're communicating with these students and they're telling you what they are. So if it, like you said, you ask them too about their social emotional support. Well, if they come in and they're saying, hey, I'm a 2, and you've given them a test and they did terrible on it, it may not be that they didn't know the material. It may be because they said they were a 2. And so I just really want to say thank you, that you are, made me cry, an amazing teacher. Not just because of the education part in there, but because of the relationships that you build. So thank you.
Yes, Mr. Duncan.
Go.
Ms. Hessen, you want to respond?
I will say Pear Deck is available to all Sumter County teachers. It's available through Google Slides. It's something that's available through our G Suite purchase. Any teacher that has Chromebooks or a teacher computer can make this happen. So, yeah.
That is awesome. Ms. Vaughn, just want to, you gave the example of the young man that didn't like his ELA class. Well, I can represent that person. Being an engineer, mathematically minded, ELA doesn't make sense to me. It violates rules. Math has rules. I'm just throwing that out there, as that may be why some of your younger students don't really enjoy ELA. I still, to this day, my son is in 7th grade, says the word, I just cringe and leave the room. But I wanted to point out something. I get paid to observe as a profession. And what I have observed is, because this board and this district went to a curriculum-based system where you don't spend all your time planning your lessons, we've been able to expand to the next level. And I think this is the next level that we're seeing here. So I'm excited to see what's beyond this point, because I think you will meet that goal, or you'll run out of things that's in your curriculum, and then what do we do? Which is a wonderful problem to have. So I'd like to thank both of you and your teams for everything you've accomplished. Madam Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Ms. Hawkins.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation. I'm impressed. I wanted to get clarification, just because I don't have children in school right now, and so I'm going to ask a question. Do I understand that all teachers are teaching technology? That the technology is covered in all the schools and all the grades? And the reason I ask is because I've been asked by parents or pointing out that PTO has to pay for a technology teacher. And they're assuming or making the assumption that the school cannot provide technology training or teaching for their school because the PTO has to pay for something. And it's my understanding that there is adequate technology teaching in each of the schools, and I just wanted to have you reaffirm that for me.
Yeah, I think, Ms. Hawkins, I think that, you know, Mr. Daniels referenced earlier about hardwired computer labs. I mean, especially like back in the days when we were spending 20 grand as a district, it was hard to get more than one hardwired computer lab in a building, and you use that. You might have a couple, and you use that for keyboarding classes or desktop publishing in a high school or yearbook or something like that. But those were generally tied to classes that could fundraise or something like that. So we have, like, most of our high schools have a hardwired computer lab because they run things like credit recovery, that students can go there and print out papers. There's a place in schools for hardwired computers. But I think what the move is, so we're kind of in a transitional period. And I think the best way to think about it is that it's okay to have those things, but the future is, like, you know, like Nicole Ms. Vaughn said, is it's seeing kids being able to use devices while working as a team, because we know from the workforce the number one skill that kids come in that college students come not having is the ability to collaborate and work together. You know, in 10 years, that won't be an issue because these kids, you know, our kids can master. You know, we had a group, we brought in a group of recent Sumner County graduates last year and had them speak to the instruction department. And we asked them if there was anything that we wished that we had taught them when they got to college that would have made their life easier. And they said, we wished you would have taught us how to attach documents and use Google Drive. And we're like, hey, we're good. We have second graders that can make PowerPoints now. You know, that's off the table. But I think what I think that they capture so well is that the shift now is towards, like, kids know how to use technology. Like, we don't really have a whole lot of keyboarding classes and things like that anymore. What we're talking about is how do we integrate technology into the classroom so that technology serves what we're doing instructionally, not that it's a separate piece. So, you know, there's certainly a place for some aspects of direct instruction on technology, but generally, most kids over the age of about 18 months, you know, can master these. But what we need them to be able to do is to know how to use that technology to do things other than to play video games, but to be able to, I mean, you think about the difference between the way a lot of our kids use technology to working on Pear Deck to write thesis statements. That's what we're talking about how it's integrated.
Versus, real short answer, versus 10 years ago, every teacher successful in the classroom today is a technology teacher. They're all using technology to be successful in the classroom.
I want to thank you, ladies. Ms. Vaughn, Ms. Hessen, thank you. As a former teacher, when the light bulb goes on with a child and you know they got it, there is nothing more rewarding. Teaching is a calling, and it's a relationship, teacher and child, teacher and student. And the way students are learning today is technology through the use of. Technology is neither good nor evil. It can be used for both. We know that very well. But to use it in this method for these students to get the immediate collaborative work, and I love the Pear Deck that you are not, a child is not called out or ostracized. And boy, does it not just expedite the whole learning process. Immediate correction, and you're collaborating. I mean, this is the way, well, it's evident on this team from the top down. So our students are doing it. So you're communicating. We're using a method that our children use every day. And you're right, Scott, Mr. Langford, 18 months. You know, it didn't take long for Emmy to grab my phone and start knowing exactly how to swipe and go to the photo gallery. And, you know, at 2 years old, I was going, this is amazing. So I just appreciate the energy, the time, the passion, the love for our students, and to see them succeed and prepare them for that next step. And middle school, the social emotional, I've said it many times on this board, the social emotional health of our students is just as important. Katie, the culture and the climate of our schools, but that social emotional, and to immediately be able to address things that are concerning. Teachers know their students. They know them. You spend this much time together, you know them. So I'm just grateful to be a part of this board and to be in this community of learning in Sumner County. So thank you. And thank you is not even enough, but thank you.
Good to have a pride coming up.
Let's be powerful and let's compete.
Yes, yes, because that's the real world, right, Ms. Mom? Thank you.
I
Ms.
want
Brown.
to say something about the fact that I'm glad the training has improved, because our training before was always during the summer, and you had they wouldn't even have, we bought our own computers. I was the first one in my school to have a computer, because I bought it. So I think it's wonderful that we're making it available. And if the teachers don't know how to use it, that's a problem. And of course, there probably will be a few who will never know how to do it, but they go home and retire. Notice, I'm assuming they're old. But anyway, I think you've set up a great program, and I really appreciate it.
We've come a long way, baby, haven't we? Even since Dr. Phillips has been here. I just appreciate the plan, the planning, the funding, looking forward and making this plan, knowing that this is the direction we were going. So just want to add that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 2, on our study session, it's an update regarding the Liberty Creek Middle and the White House Intermediate Plan. Dr. Phillips.
Yes, thank you. So real fast, just wanted to give you kind of a timeline update for these two projects, and kind of so you know what's out there and what's coming. Currently working with, obviously, with the architect and engineer that we use for all of our projects. We've met several times. We had originally thought that we would probably try to bid these jobs late fall if we could, but we're learning that probably waiting until the spring of next year, putting them out on the street in January timeframe, having the bids back in and hopefully to the board and through the commission cycle in April, May, sign contracts so we can get a notice to proceed to contractors sometime June, 1st of June, is probably going to be more advantageous for us. That's for a number of reasons. I don't think necessarily that us making changes or designing the building or pushing forward with work is the largest one. The biggest one for us currently, it really deals with the market. It's just the construction market is a little bit crazy right now. Most of the guys that bid, contractors that bid large school projects are a little bit concerned about supply and the constraints that are in the supply chain right now. The way we bid projects, which is the law in Tennessee for everyone, every school district, we obviously design, put the projects out for bid, get the low bid from a contractor. They're locked into that pricing. So as prices have increased rapidly, some of those contractors have pulled back on their intent to bid projects because it's just so much volatility in the market right now. So it really, for us internally, we'll be prepared and ready to go to market, like I said, sometime in January, back through hopefully with bids in April, May timeframe for the commission. That will put us opening school those 2 schools opening in August of 2024. August of 2024. You know, Mr. Wise and I spoke earlier, and in regard to the White House Intermediate School, obviously that time frame works well with what we need to do there. In regard to Liberty Creek Middle, we will be obviously as we have planned all along. We will have the middle school and the high school housed together. We had looked at that being for multiple years. Then when the county was gracious enough to go ahead and give us funding for the standalone middle school, we thought maybe 1 year, but now we're looking at they will be a part of the same building for 2 school years. So 2 school years. But it doesn't impact anything in regard to the Liberty Creek campus in the transition to that new school complex in August of 2022. So just a brief update. If any of you think of any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Any questions for the board? Then we're going to move to item number 3, C, ABC. I'm looking at my agenda. C, the 2022-2023 Calendar Committee recommendation, and this is Mr. Langford. Correct.
Yeah, Ms. Hessen and Ms. Vaughn were way more entertaining than I'm going to be about the calendar, way more engaging. You know, the calendar committee, first I'd like to thank Dr. Jeff Yawn. He's our supervisor of professional growth. Jeff spearheaded the calendar committee. There is nothing probably more challenging to do than to get the calendar worked out. You know, it has to equal 180 days, and that really jams you some years. Now, the good news is this year we're not jammed. Sometimes it's really hard to catch the things that we always want to catch without doing a little gymnastics. But if you'll look, there isn't a tremendous difference between the 3 calendars. If you look at the first preference, the biggest difference that I can point out to you is in April. You'll see that we have Friday, April 7th and Monday, April 10th off. You know, that provides a nice break. That's a long stretch from spring break to the end of the year. It also happens to coincide with a major holiday. And the feedback that we get is a lot of people would like to have the Monday after Easter off. So it works out really well there. But it also provides, like, we start state testing usually the following week around the 17th. And so it gives everybody a nice break. Our teachers and students, everybody really get after it in those all the time, but especially in those weeks leading up to. So it's a nice little break there. That's the biggest difference. If you'll notice, some of the things that we went to a couple years ago that we've been able to maintain are the week for Thanksgiving break. We have increasingly a large number of people that are moving in from all over the country, and that what we were finding is that if we had the traditional Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off for Thanksgiving, we had a lot of families that were going ahead and taking the Monday, Tuesday off for travel, and it made it really hard for our schools to manage what to use. So basically, there were a lot of filler activities and everything because you'd have half your class there on those days. So I think it works out really well for us to have that week off, and that was the recommendation of the committee on all of the calendars. You'll notice that we're not breaking up. There's a break around the January 1st holiday. We're not coming back right on the 2nd. You'll notice that we're not coming back after Memorial Day. Those are a number of things that we usually try to avoid that we've been able to do on all the calendars. So I'll just we're required to put together a calendar for 2 years down the road. Typically what we do is we put a baseline calendar together, and as you know, we typically then make a lot of changes to it based on the feedback that we receive. I would like to point out, because a lot of times this question comes up, the way this committee works is there are 20 committee members, including, not counting Dr. Yawn, a few people from my office that kind of help. There are a lot of rules on this, like how you can use stockpile days and what counts and what doesn't count, and when you can do PL days and professional learning days and things like that. So they kind of check to make sure that we're meeting all the requirements on that. But there are 20 committee members that come from, so there are students, parents, teachers, counselors, principals, and APs. that sit on this committee and contribute to make the decisions. Mr. Crook was on there this year as one of our principals. He's a longtime veteran of the calendar committee. It's nice to have a long-term veteran on the calendar committee because there are a lot of moving parts to this. It's not as you don't have as much flexibility as you think, but it's also not as easy as you think to put it together. So probably that's the best presentation I can give. And just if y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
I've got a comment, really. There are 2 election dates listed, and using those as professional days is an interesting concept instead of just letting those days go by the wayside and nothing happen.
Yeah, the Election Commission for a long time asked us to not have anybody in the building on those days, but we've kind of negotiated because it really, what we have found is our schools really love having those days when the time to get together with all your teachers is hard to find. And so to find those throughout the year is really great. Mr. Duncan, the thing that jumped out at me is I was looking at the future calendar and I was like, wow, we've got presidential primaries in 2 years in March. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but that's reflected in that.
I just think that's a wonderful use of
Yeah.
everybody's time.
Yeah.
I just think that's a wonderful thing. Instead of just sending everybody home on those 2 days, we can actually accomplish something
Yeah. Yeah.
within those 2 days. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it is not going to come to any surprise to Mr. Yon that I maybe have a question or a comment. I feel like he and I talk about the calendar every year. So a couple of things is just from feedback that I've already received from some people that have reviewed the calendar is one, obviously we all know that due to the change that happened in the 90s, early 2000s, where we went from 150 days to 180 days, it makes it where we have to go back to school sooner, right, in August. But I've had a couple of people point out that going back that August 1st, where you go 3 days and then you're off for the election, asking about it being pushed back a week, kind of everything being pushed back a week, and then notating that, yes, that would then mean going back to the abbreviated Thanksgiving schedule, and then also you would abbreviate Christmas. Was that discussed at all within the calendar committee, Mr. Yon, and how?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, one of our committee members was emphatic that they keep the 3 weekends over Christmas break, because the way the calendar was last year and the way it's set up this year, as well as the teachers and the feedback that came back, was they really liked those 3 weekends over the Christmas break. And then, as you noted, if we push it forward anymore, then because of the week at fall break and because of the week of Thanksgiving, we're already offsetting the fall numbers at 87 to 93 days in the spring. So anytime, there were lots of, because the calendar committee comes in with a lot of ideas, but then when they start looking at the actual numbers, then they were animate. In fact, they loved the November 1st day, which because of the election, we lost that day in this recommendation. We lucked out last time when Halloween was on a Saturday and November 1st was on a Sunday, and then the election was that following Tuesday. But when you start playing with those numbers, the calendar committee even considered recommending one of the 3 with removing days from Thanksgiving, because we could pull, because another recommendation was to take off September 20th because the day after parent-teacher conferences was hard to be at the school that late and then return the next day. But then when the conversation came to, well, we'll submit one recommendation to the board taking those 2 days from Thanksgiving away, it was axed universally across the board. So now that we've given them that, they even were willing to give up that November 1st and the September 20th recommendations if it meant losing either one of those 2 days.
And I've seen both, I've seen both people that are saying, yes, let's go back a week later, and people that, no, I like the week. So just curious what the conversation was on that.
And if you look at, I know it's kind of hard to tell on this, but if you actually look at where May falls, because it's on the 21-22 calendar, you actually have the same number of weeks. We have those 8 weeks. It just looks, because of where Memorial Day falls, it makes it look like it's a shorter calendar than it actually is, but there's still 8 weeks from when we get out in May to when we would restart. But because of where Memorial Day is, you can't really see it when they're just looking at this calendar because they're not thinking back to the previous year. So if that helps in communication, they're still going to get those 8 weeks off over the summer.
Another question that I have is specifically about the spring break. I feel like every year we hear, it's so soon, it's not warm, and so forth. And so to see that we are looking at doing the Easter long weekend, was there any discussion about moving? I know we like to do our spring break and fall break between the 9 weeks, but as a parent who over the last couple of years, when we come back from Christmas, if you look, because of the way holidays fall, and because typically we get cold weather in February, it always feels like that there are several years recently where we have not gone a full 5-day week until March. And it's just as soon as you go to feel like you're getting into a good routine, oh, it's spring break. And then you come back and it's and so just to know if we were to move spring break to align with Easter, one, it gives us an extra day, so we would get out a day earlier, if I've done my calculations correctly. And then two, I feel like it would give more consistent instruction, have a break to go into state testing.
I think the issues, Ms. Andrews, there are a couple. I think one is that falls at the 9 weeks. So we have classes that change in middle school and high school at the 9 weeks. It's hard to come in for a couple weeks and then change that. I also think then that pushes spring break. I think it was my second year back teaching. We did a 2-week spring break and it was late. And we might as well have ended school because it was about 75, 80 degrees. And as a high school teacher, it took me a solid 2 weeks to get the kids back in their routine of being there. Our lack of attendance shot way up. The kids were done at that point. And it also, that would push spring break right back up into when we start, not just our state testing, but our spring ACT, our AP exams, things like that. I think that, I don't disagree that it would be nice to be able, to have those days in March without interruption, or to be able to travel a little later. But if you ask me instructionally what's best for kids, it's that break right at the end of the 9 weeks, just like we do in the fall with fall break. It meets the needs, I think, of our schools and kids better.
Right. And I understand that. I just think too, talking to working parents and so forth, when they look at this schedule, it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think I'm obviously blessed, and we have a decision as we made a decision as our family that I'm at home, and so whenever we have breaks, that's not something necessarily something that we have to take into consideration, because I can adjust. Not every family's that way, and so when they're looking and they're like, okay, so I just got off for 3 weeks in December. Now I've got the extra day in the middle of January. Then a couple weeks later, I've got another day off. Then we get a whole week off for spring break, and then I'm gonna get 2 more days off. Then I got to go into May and the craziness of that, and then finally we're that is a lot. I feel like for those working parents to maybe look at. That's what I'm saying. Either, and I know what you're saying as far as, yes, those kids that have those 9-week courses, that's a week off. But really, when you look at January and February, those same kids that are having 9-week courses, when we have inclement weather, they're missing that too. One can be planned for, one can't. I understand that. But so that's just one thing that I think I would make a recommendation of looking at, is in that specifically somehow combining that with spring break. Like I said, it then gives us also an extra day, so we're out we don't have to go the Friday before Memorial Day, which I feel like also would allow more flexibility within schedules.
There was a committee member that recommended pretty much exactly what you suggested there. And in addition to what Mr. Langford noted, because there are tested teachers, CTE teachers, when we look at the committee, we have a gamut across the board of all the different types of teachers, K-12 and geographically from across the district, as well as parents and students. So they, CTE teachers, the only thing I would add to what Mr. Langford said that the committee brought up was that you run into CTE competitions as well that could impact those. So the committee shifted back to the fall break because, like you said, they did like the fact that that could save us a day and get out a day early by incorporating Good Friday into the spring break. But the committee ultimately went back to the 3 decisions after, a rather in-depth conversation about it.
And I do understand that with the competitions. I would have to think though that it also would be very similar to what our sports teams deal with the fall break and so forth. They're still playing. They're still, if you play sports, you know that the only 2 times that you get off is dead period. And so,
Okay.
again, I know that puts, but we're not saying that if we were to move spring break that those kids could not go to those competitions. They would just lose.
Right.
You would pick.
Your coaches also would not like an April spring break because it's right. You're getting close to district tournaments. You got a lot of district games. It's hard to keep kids' attention when you're out of school on spring break. So again, I think the instructional decisions for me are the most valid, but it does, like with CTE competitions, sports competitions, everything else. That April begins the whirlwind towards the end of the year that makes it hard to take a week off there, I think.
Yeah, I understand. I just think that should be something that we, maybe even consider, especially as Easter fluctuates. And like I said, keeping that in mind. As far as I know, I know Beach was playing in, state tournaments and so forth last year, and I feel like that when you sign on specifically in high school to a sport, and if it's a fall sport, you're not getting fall break. If it's a spring sport, you're not getting spring break. I feel like you just kind of know that going into it.
Ms. Brown,
I am fully in support of what you're saying. Another issue, to me, Easter means family. We got enough problems with families not together. They're spread out. They can't, where can you go? How many miles in those 4 days? Especially if you have children and you're flying, it's expensive. And it's gonna get a lot worse. So my problem is this. And also, if you're renting condos, you need to do it. I know I've got one that you have to rent from year to year to get the same, of whatever. Renting is gonna get worse. And so they need to plan. I think I would be happier, I know I would, I think all these others are minor adjustments in a kid's life. But I think Easter has a meaning in our culture. And I think they need to see the grandparents, because I'm one, and, visit family. And so I would like for it to always follow Easter, be the week before Easter. That way they would know I can rent here because I know it's going to be the week before Easter. They know 10 years from now when they could get it, I just think maybe it's a time for thinking of, in our day and time, of thinking of family instead of, parsing it one way or the other. I think family's very important, but it's become not so important. So I would really like for it to fluctuate and with always the week before Easter.
We can certainly make that recommendation to the committee next year.
I would like for you to, and
Yeah.
tell them why.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I will say this, a celebration, I think, just to wrap up, this is the earliest we've ever done the calendar. So we're giving families a lot more, like a month or 2 months lead time to make those decisions and make those arrangements to be able to travel and visit. I would also say, just so we presume everybody knows this, but like, we have Union that has a different schedule. So what we usually do is we set our calendar first, so we'll vote on it this month, and then we'll send that to Mr. Taylor, and they will work, and they'll come up with how this fits Union's alternative schedule, and then we'll bring that back to you in November. So that's typically the way we do it, but it'll also give, because typically we've done ours in November, sometimes December, and then come back with Union. So this will give us, we're picking up a month in that process. So I think that'll help parents as well. But we can certainly make that recommendation to the committee.
Are you saying making it?
Mr. Gregory?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If there are no, Mr. Gregory, do you have a comment? Oh, Ms. Andrews, thank you, Dr. Phillips. Ms. Andrews.
Yeah, I have one more.
Mr. Gregory, do you have anything that you need to say?
How many of these points were not covered when the committee met?
Mr. Gregory, it sounds like they were all addressed. They were all talked about. And this is the committee considered all the things that we've talked about tonight, and these were the recommendations that they came up with.
Well, I'd have a hard time voting against what the committee, because they put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Yeah. And I would say that we've gotten great feedback over the last couple of years. Like, I think the way that we do calendar committee is we've really, some things like adding moving teacher recognition to the week that we do the Teacher of the Year banquet. I think that's been a great addition that we've done. Adding when stockpile days are, we've really gotten some good feedback that we've taken back to the committee, and then it's been reflected in future calendars, and we can certainly do the same thing here.
Another question, would all of them have to come back to the office here on the committee if you brought these points up? Or would you do it by Zoom?
No, well, I mean, I think like if that would come from y'all's direction. If you didn't like any of these alternatives, then we would call the committee back. But what my suggestion would be is I'll take this feedback to the committee for next year.
Oh, for next year?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Ms. Andrews, did you have another comment?
I did. I was also going to say, in light of the resolution that we passed last month that we sent, requesting, the days and also some virtual options and so forth. We speak a lot about COVID, and I feel like through COVID, we realized some things we were doing really well, some things that we needed to change, and then just some things that were different. And I feel like some feedback that I have gotten from teachers, and the slide too, talking about teaching today's kids as tomorrow we're all, is I feel like a lot of times when we, present calendars or talk about a lot of things, we hear a lot of, well, when I was in school, ... Well, we know school has changed a lot. When I was in school, you didn't have a lot of kids that had IEPs and 504s and all that. And I feel like that has been a major shift that's great for students. But it's difficult on our teachers. It's a lot on them. And just, whether it's grading or making phone calls or emails and so forth. One of the things I would like to see, is if in the future at some point, if our state would allow for those virtual flex days and so forth, I think that would be something that would be great as well for us to be able to incorporate in our calendar where we, once in 9 weeks, maybe not in the last 9 weeks, but specifically those first 3, that we would have pre-appointed days for our teachers that said, hey, and so families know ahead of time, hey, this day is going to be a virtual day. Make sure that, there is instruction for every teacher, because I know that's feedback that I've gotten from parents is that, sometimes on virtual days, some teachers would provide lots of things, some teachers wouldn't, provide or whatever. But then that would give our teachers an opportunity, more than just their 45-minute planning or whatever, that they get caught up. So I just want to put that out there that hopefully, I feel like our state is looking at maybe doing some things differently, that they too are realizing we can't keep doing it the way we've always done it. And so hopefully if they will be reflective of that, then, if that, say this spring they come in the legislature and say, hey, yeah, we're going to authorize that, then we could come back and bring the calendar back and put those dates in. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, all of this is predicated on what state law. So that's why you have so many rules written through legislation or through more state board policy. So sure, I mean, if they make some drastic change to how they calculate days or flexibility or flex days or hybrid or whatever, certainly we would have to come back and talk about it again.
I appreciate the discussion, the input. I have, excuse me, Mr. Wilkerson.
It's okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Have our principals seen this? And
So, Mr. Wilkerson, like we had, let me give you a count. We had we had 3 principals and 3 assistant principals out of the 20 on the committee that participated. And then a lot of our principals do check the board agenda, so it's been on the board agenda for a couple days. And so they look, and then typically, like, once the board votes on it, we'll roll it out to them. Usually we have, most weeks now on Wednesdays, we have a principals meeting, and then we roll out whatever new things come along. But most of our principals, if they know the calendar's on there, they look and they give us feedback.
and I'm assuming their first preference is preference 1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the input, the discussion, things that we need to think about, and even if it's for the next calendar year. I appreciate Dr. Yan, who has served as spearheaded this committee. I served twice on that when my children were growing up as a PTO president, Nanny Berry, 2 terms, and it is a challenging position. A room full of 20 and coming up with a calendar. It is hard work. So I appreciate and thank you to the committee members. And this will be open for discussion before we vote next week. Next Tuesday night will be the scheduled board meeting. So if there are not any other questions, comments, input, Dr. Phillips, you're good? This meeting is, as Chairman Brewer would say, so adjourned. I feel so adjourned.